I have been playing the closed beta for Call of Dragons for the last 2 months, and in this video, I want to give you an update on everything we've learned so far since that very first live stream we did together to create this 100% free-to-play account. So if you're interested in Call of Dragons, the new city-building war game made by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, this video will give you a great overview of the things you want to know. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today we're getting a closer look at Call of Dragons, which I have been playing every single day for the last 2 months. Now, if you're newer to the game, or you have no clue what this game is all about, let me tell you up front, it's a city-building war game, and so much of what you'll see here will be familiar from playing Rise of Kingdoms. However, if you haven't played Rise of Kingdoms, or you're new to the genre, I'll give you everything you need to know. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more Call of Dragons videos, and I do plan to whale pretty heavily on this game as soon as it goes for a global public launch, so I can showcase what that looks like as well, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, with that said, there will be timestamps in the description, so you can jump to the following chapters of this video. First, we're going to cover the city building war aspects of this game. What is this all about? From there, I want to talk more in depth about the heroes and equipment. In this game, it's called artifacts that you're collecting. And then I'm going to talk about the seasonal cadence, what you're ultimately fighting for in Call of Dragons. So, let's get started. At the start of the game, you pick a faction. Much like a civilization in Rise of Kingdoms, I went with the faction that looks like orcs. They're called Wilderburg. There's also humans, and it's the League of Order. Also the Spring Wardens, which are basically elves. Now, there are perks to each of these factions, but so much of this game has still been in flux and changing around. I don't want to talk now about, like, what is the best faction. I don't think that makes any sense. It'd be very hard to know. But what I will say is, I went with this one because I think it looks cool. And so my city looks very much like an orc settlement. But the buildings, if you've played Rise of Kingdoms, will all look extremely familiar to you. The main building in your city that you're leveling up is the equivalent of your city hall. In this case, it's my Wilder Hall, which I would take up to level 25. Doing so gives me benefits that you're very much familiar with in Rise of Kingdoms. That includes more troop capacity and more marches of troops that I can bring onto the field. There are production buildings, which you can see over here. My main resources are gold and then wood as the sort of most basic resource. Then there is stone, and then mana, which is the most premium resource. In Rise of Kingdoms, this would be the equivalent of gold. Now, you train troops. You've got a building that is the Alliance Center, where you help your allies, and it helps, reduce the time it takes to go and do things. There's a storehouse that saves you some resources. I mean, all of these buildings are very familiar. The one building that works very, very differently that I do want to highlight is the hospital. Now, in Rise of Kingdoms, you use resources and speed-ups to heal down your hospital. But in Call of Dragons, you have 2 options. Both of them, by the way, are limited based on the level of your hospitals. And those options are to get healing 100% for free. That's right, in this game, your troops can heal over time for free. You just get them back, okay? Alternatively, you can do resource-based healing, and both of these are constrained. So there's a limit to the amount of troops you can heal in any period of time. This is important to keep in mind because a bottleneck to fighting in this game is ultimately going to be the number of troops you have at your disposal, because eventually they're all going to be in the hospital. Your hospital can't overflow. There's no capacity limit on the hospital. There is instead a limit to the amount of troops that can heal per period of time. But enough about your city and what's contained in it. Let's just zoom out and appreciate the map for just a minute, because in Rise of Kingdoms, you got like green and brown splotches, okay, for your map. And I just want to say that things look a good bit more detailed with the graphics in this game. In fact, this is an absolutely massive map that you spawn into in Call of Dragons. And in my opinion, they put a lot of effort into having really iconic points of interest. So for example, if I get a look around here, and this just shows you how large the map is, I can zoom in on this one particular point, Mount Tempest, which looks pretty damn cool. Like, yeah, you can fly units, and yes, there are flying units in this game. Past this, you can fight right outside this, and you can see there are the equivalent of barbarians. These are creeps on the map that you go and battle to go and get resources and speed ups and experience for your heroes. There are the equivalent of barbarian forts. They're called Darkling forts. And there are, of course, resource points that you can go and gather from. Now, the environments in this game really range dramatically. This was a volcano in a forest-like environment. But if I just get a look around here, I can take you to a frozen tundra. And I can zoom in on a point of interest here. Let's go to the Wolf Shrine, which looks pretty cool. All right. You can see that the environment looks very, very different. And I can zoom back out and take you to a desert where, I mean, okay, it's a desert. You kind of know what to expect. But the Quicksand Gorge here, it looks pretty cool, okay? So graphics-wise, compared to Rise of Kingdoms, there's an obvious and major step up. And these points of interest are also quest centers. They give you some pretty decent rewards when you're just starting out the game. My hope is that later on, and I'll talk about this with the seasonal portion and aspect of the game, that these become really, I feel like, more of a center point and more of a focus for what you try to accomplish throughout the season. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you wanted to get a look at the whole map, I can take you there now. I've scouted every single thing, and yes, you do scout the map to see kind of what's on here, much like in Rise of Kingdoms. And this is the entirety of the map, which I have painstakingly revealed over a long period of time. Scouting the map does give you a bunch of bonuses as you go and do that, and we can get a look around and zoom into any of the different points of interest throughout the map, and these all look really cool. Like, I kind of want to show you every single one, but that will maybe be a longer video to show each of these really kind of intricate looking points of interest. And when I say intricate looking, I mean, look, this is a mobile game, okay? So we keep it all in stride. So if I jump back to my city, I didn't show you one thing that I think we need to go get a look at now, which is a major part of how you advance in this game, which is, of course, through research. If you're familiar with city building war games, you know how important this is. If we get a look at the research trees, there are two of them. There's a military tree and there's an economy tree. Now, in the military tree, you're gaining a bunch of bonuses to your stats and also unlocking higher and higher tiers of troops. I am still working on some of my T4 unlocks, and yes, you see this correctly, I have 2 research queues. So I'm able to research 2 things at the same time. The economy tree does much of what you would expect, increasing your building speed, making it so that your troops can carry more resources at a time, which is actually really important at the start of the game, improving your research speed, your gathering speeds, and so on. So this is all stuff that you're very much familiar with from Rise of Kingdoms or other city-building war games that you've played. I think the thing that really differentiates Call of Dragons from other games is the way that combat works and the heroes. So let's get a look now at the heroes that you can collect. And regardless of what faction you choose, all of the heroes are potentially at your disposal once you unlock them. These heroes can be unlocked primarily through opening keys and the key system in-game. There are some heroes that come from events and spending events in particular. Those will be your legendary heroes that typically come from that. And yes, there is also different rarities here. This is a legendary hero. His background's in yellow. There's epic and also, I guess, elite, which is in blue. Each hero in this game has a series of skills, much like you would see in Rise of Kingdoms, and the equivalent of an expertise skill. I believe it's called an awakening skill in this game. So once you've maxed every skill on the hero, then boom, you can get the awakening skill. And it is important to mention that there's no skill lock function in this game. Skills are deployed randomly. So as you increase the star level of the hero, you unlock more skills, and unlocking more skills means that your skill points will deploy randomly. So you may want to max the first skill before you increase the star level of your hero. And these stars, by the way, are a very limited resource. There's only so many of these that you get. So you can see here, I happen to have saved up a bunch of these. If I wanted to star up this hero, I could go and do that, but it is going to cost a bunch of these resources because, as I said before, I still want to max the first skill on this hero. Now, the epic heroes are what most people run around with most of the time. And one thing that's really noteworthy about these heroes is that they have different ranges. That's right, this is a hero that needs to be in close combat, but this hero right over here actually shoots at a distance. You can see this by looking at their main skill. This is the active skill, and much like you have experienced in Rise of Kingdoms, you accumulate rage as you're fighting things before you use your active skill, which typically has a big effect. But you can see here, the attack range on this skill is very far. this is a hero that can be used to attack at range. And there are different unit specializations as well. So you've got the equivalent of your infantry, you've got ranged units, which are archers, you've also got magic-based units and magic-based heroes. So this is really important to differentiate. The damage that this hero does is impacted by the troop type you're using. You want to have a magic-based unit in this hero's march. They have a very far attack range, and you can see here in the description that the damage they deal is impacted by the Legion's magic attack. Legion is the troops that you're bringing. So there are also cavalry in this game and flying units in this game, which is pretty wild. Now, why don't I just take a few for a spin and show you what this looks like? I've got a few army presets already made that I use to battle barbarians. I've got a blend of T3 and T4 troops. I'll bring them out onto the field now. So I've got one army I use to tank. It's all about damage mitigation. This army does entirely ranged damage. My next army will do primarily magic-based damage, okay? And I'm bringing my magic-based unit, and then I can bring my cavalry, which move very quickly, and my cavalry heroes. Now, one thing you've probably immediately noticed is that when I brought these heroes out of my city, there are also these icons next to them. This is the artifact that I have equipped to the hero. Instead of equipment in this game, you've got an artifact, and those artifacts frequently have activated abilities. So this makes the combat a good bit more dynamic because you need to choose when to use these abilities, and you want to use them very strategically. So for example, I'll show you the artifacts more in depth in just a minute, but I've got an artifact over here that puts a shield on everybody, an artifact over here that is going to do a big attack. The artifact above that is going to do a healing effect, and the artifact above that does big damage and also knocks the enemy up in the air, effectively kind of like a stun. So I can show you how that works. I'm going to battle this level 24 creep on the map. They're a Darkling Patrol. First things first, I'm going to deploy my shield on my armies. Then I'm going to send in my infantry unit. Then I'm going to get my cavalry in position. I'm going to select all my units, and after my main march has engaged here, I want that march to tank, I send in all my other armies, and you can see they immediately start shooting from range. Now, I can use some of these other artifacts. I've got this one big ranged damage effect. It does AoE damage in a single line. Boom, you can see those purple numbers showcased that damage on the screen, and I defeat this barbarian, this creep, very easily. Now, from here, I can go and battle more of these, and I'm spending what's called combat points, I believe, the equivalent of action points. Yeah, CP, that green bar over there. This is really important to spend down. I'll talk more about why that is in just a minute, but you get a lot of value just from battling these on the map, and I can go smash this guy. I can either wait till my tank unit engages, or I can have everybody engage. And what's important to note about even the PvE in this game is that the things you're fighting are actually different unit types. That was a warlock that does a bunch of magic damage. It actually damages every single unit that's attacking it. This over here is a dark creature, which will behave very differently. So I very much overpower these creatures at this point. But you'll notice that this creature has different battle mechanics. It behaves in a very different way than the Darkling Patrol did. It's going to do AoE attacks. It's going to have special abilities that are very different. And the way that you fight these is very different when your power level is sort of relatively low. So you can take on harder and harder fights if you know what you're doing and you use your units strategically. Here I can use that knock-up effect. I already killed it. Easy win there. And I can show you this unit over here, this dark creature, has very different effects. It's basically got like a shield charge, and it does big AoE damage. And I overpower this level of difficulty of monster at this point in the season. We're pretty far along. But the way that these fight is very different. And I just wanted to show this to you because this is very different than the sort of bland barbarians that you're used to in Rise of Kingdoms that do basically the same thing every time you fight them. If I wanted, I can use my heal ability here on my cavalry. You can see that little heal triggers. I can do my big damage effect, or because the creep's already dead, I'm just going to cancel out. So this gives you a sense of how the units are different, and you need to deploy them strategically in this game. Now, I mentioned artifacts here, but you can see now in the upper left for each of my heroes, I have one artifact deployed for each hero that I'm actively using. These artifacts have really important abilities and effects, which you can level up and star up and also skill up. That's right, 3 things to do. The level on this thing you increase over time as you get artifact experience. I actually can't level this one up any further because I'm capped by the star level. The star level determines the maximum number of levels you can have on the item. So here I've got actually a lot of these stars, 232 of these. I actually could do some pretty serious upgrades here. I haven't decided what I want to upgrade yet. I'm just kind of chilling. Maybe I'll do this on a live stream together. Subscribe again if you haven't already, and we'll play around with more of this stuff maybe in a stream. But increasing the star level gives you more stats on the item. Okay, you can see I get more Legion attack. And also it increases my maximum level capacity, the max level I can take the item to. Now, increasing the level gives me more stats. This particular item does peacekeeping damage, and as I mentioned, it has an AoE effect. Now, the more of this giant bone axe that I get, the higher the skill level I can take it to. Now, I happen to have this to the highest skill level possible, and that does 2,000 damage factor, and there's a 65% chance that my enemies go airborne when I hit them, which is pretty cool. It actually knocks them airborne for 3 seconds. That's a pretty major stun. I really want to emphasize how important these artifacts are. The abilities that they have really vary dramatically, and some of them are doing damage, some of them are doing shielding, some of them are doing healing, but you can do some really cool things with your artifacts. So if I show you my inventory of artifacts here, and again, this is a 100% free-to-play account, some of these artifacts are really kind of unique. For example, this Cloak of Stealth. Casts immediately, grants my Legion stealth for 1,300 seconds, and my march speed is slower, but I can't be detected. So you can move your troops somewhere really strategic on the map and do something important. Or alternatively, this Freezing Ring. I cast it immediately, grants the ice defense to your Legion, making them immune to all damage, but unable to carry out actions. Think about like a mage having ice block in World of Warcraft. I have to think that was the inspiration here. These artifacts do really cool effects, and I only have 2 of the legendary artifacts, but there are a bunch of them that do AoE healing and AoE defense reductions and a lot more. Now, if you were wondering, how do you get your artifacts? How do you get your heroes? I mentioned earlier that there are events and there are keys. Let me just run my troops home real quick, and we'll take you into my city. And within my city, I can go and show you the arena, okay? There are several areas of the arena that you're going to be interested in. One is the area where you recruit heroes. These are the silver and gold keys. And there is a pity system in place in this game, which I do really like. The pity system means that every 5 draws, you get 1 epic or legendary hero. Now, I have actually been saving some silver and gold keys to be able to show this to you, so let me just crack open some silver keys here. You can see the official name for this is a token, the equivalent of a sculpture in Rise of Kingdoms. These are the stars that you use to level up your heroes. They're medals. And I got some resources and I got some speed ups. Nothing too major. But if I open these gold chests, okay? The gold chests are a lot more interesting. This is where I can get some legendary heroes, which is obviously what I really want. In this case, I got 10 shards of an epic hero, which is pretty cool. This is a cavalry hero. I can draw 1 at a time. Ooh, 10 more shards of another epic hero. That's kind of cool. This dude is used for defending your city. Really good hero for that. And I can open 10 at a time if I want, where I get a guaranteed at least 2 are going to be epic or better. And I got actually 3, which is kind of nice. I got a legendary, and I accidentally tapped through that. Let's just open another 10 so I can show you here. Boom. What do we got? All right, if I scroll up, let's see if it lets me do that. There we go. I got 10 of a legendary cavalry hero, 10 of an epic cavalry hero, 10 of a mage epic hero, and a bunch of blues that I ultimately will use for fodder, which is also something that's kind of cool about this system. In this game, you actually can trade in excess of a commander for a currency that you can use for something you actually need. So if I have these blue heroes expertise, which I think I already have them maxed, I can actually go to a special shop that's in my city. It's right over here, the Goblin Market. I can go to the exchange and I can scrap hero items. So I can scrap the heroes that I already have maxed out, and I can use that to get things I actually need. So for example, Kella is a gathering hero. I have her maxed. I can scrap all of her tokens, confirm it. I can scrap all of Ordo. I have him maxed. Confirm it. I can scrap all of Chakcha. I have him maxed. Okay. Confirm it. and then I can trade them in for things that I actually want and need. So I have 1,800 of the hero currency saved up over here, which gets me, okay, I can buy one universal legendary commander sculpture. In this case, it is the one custom token, right? But you can get what you actually need, which is pretty cool. And you can choose from different things, and this is a shop that refreshes each week. So you can only go through this so fast. As you can see in the upper right, there are actually 3 different currencies in 3 different sections here. One is for the heroes, another is for the artifacts, and then yet another is for other items. So if I go back over here, what are the sorts of things I can trade in? Oh, so I can trade in my equivalent of arrows used to level up my watchtower, or the equivalent of Books of the Covenant. These are treaties used to level up your rally center in this game. But I still need to show you how we draw artifacts. So if I make my way back down here, also, you can see from my fighting earlier, I had some number of troops hit my hospital. Those have all healed automatically. 671 units. They've just healed naturally over time. If I go back to the arena, there's this section over here. This is where you draw your artifacts. So you're guaranteed an epic or legendary artifact every 10 draws, and there are also special events. I'll show you some of that in just a second for where you can get some of these artifacts. So I'm going to draw 10 at a time because that's kind of more exciting. We crack this open. The little purple flash there showed me I did get at least one purple artifact. These are the Boots of Swiftness. I already have those maxed out. They give a bunch of speed. The Joyous Firework is a cosmetic. It's basically a junker. The Rapid Crossbow. So it's an elite tier ranged attack, I believe. And if I wanted to see that, I can tap into it. Arrow Strike deals physical damage to the target 2 times in succession. So there you go. And I can skill this up, by the way. It's a maximum damage factor of 500. All right. If I make my way through the rest of these pulls, though, what we get? The Harlequin Mask. This is kind of a cool one. It actually taunts the enemy. So if you're into the PvE stuff, this can do some pretty cool things. We'll continue forward here. Let's find the epic. There we go. The Heart Piercer. I actually don't have this, I think. So this deals physical damage to the target legion, damage factor of 1,000, and has a 40% chance to inflict a physical defense break, reducing their defense by 15% for 3 seconds. You can see this also increases marksman unit attack. And if I look at the skills here, this does a maximum of 2,000 damage factor and has a 65% chance to get that defense reduction when it is at the max level. That's kind of cool. The Heart Shot. And leveling this up, you can see I use this Arcane Dust. I'm going to talk more about that a bit later, but it increases the amount of that marksman unit attack that this item is giving. Okay, very cool. We can keep opening these up. Harlequin Mask, Stormleaf, most of that is junk. I can rip open another 10 for the video. Let's freaking go. Do we get anything exciting? I think I got an epic there. That purple flash tells me that's what it is. If we click through these, what do we got? Bunch of junk and the Blade of Reproach. This is kind of a cool one. It's giving cavalry unit attack, and also it has a ranged damage ability, physical damage, pretty large amount, and you get 1 buff effect. For each buff effect gained, the damage is increased. It stacks up to 5 times. So this is something you want to use like a lot of times in a longer fight, and it stacks up a bunch of buffs. I believe that's how that works anyways. We rip open the rest of these. Kind of cool. One more draw of 10. Let's freaking go. Epic item. Guaranteed the epic item, by the way. I guess we're really winning if we got 2 epic items. Here is the Staff of Spring. I was using this earlier. This does a healing effect, which is pretty cool. Heals slightly wounded units in a target legion. I already have this thing maxed out, but the good news is I can trade it in, as I mentioned earlier, get a currency I can use to exchange for something I actually need, which is a system that I am very, very happy with to see in this game. Okay, boom, there you go. All right, congratulations. Now I'm not going to open all my keys. We got to have something to do later on stream, perhaps. I think one final thing I'll show you with heroes, by the way, is that you see they are marching around my city. You can chat with them and increase their loyalty score. This, by the way, will unlock even more of their sort of sculptures or tokens for free. So you can chat with them. Yeah, you don't have to necessarily read what they're saying. You can tap through it really fast if you're kind of used to it. And I've increased his trust level, okay? It's kind of a loyalty level. There are also items that you get, daily quests that you complete, where you can gift them to the hero, and that will increase their loyalty level. And as I mentioned, the higher their loyalty level gets, you get a few sculptures. It's not that many. It's like 3 and 5. Ultimately, you get those, which is good because you're going to want to level up your heroes and increase their skill levels. So by this point in the video, you're probably wondering, but what's the point of it all, Chisgule? In Rise of Kingdoms, the goal is to build up and fight in KVK. And I will mention that in Rise of Kingdoms, there was no goal for like 9 months. The first 9 months of the game, all you had was just kind of building up and building up. And there wasn't really any objective until they announced, hey, we're going to do this thing called Kingdom versus Kingdom. Well, in this game, we're still very much in the early game, but the way that this works is that there are actually seasons. Each season has a series of objectives, okay? And this is the equivalent of the monument in Rise of Kingdoms. There are a bunch of these different objectives, chapters, if you will, for what happens in the season. And what's so interesting about this game that differentiates it from Rise of Kingdoms is that you have a season-based experience, and then a bunch of things are reset. And let me explain. The way that the season works is they take you through a bunch of story, and once all of that is over, a whole bunch of things are reset, okay? Your hero level is reset. Now, you're still going to have the same star level you had, but you're going to need to level up your heroes all over again in a new season. This means that even if you have lots of heroes, you're going to have to pick and choose which ones are most important to you because you're going to have to level up from scratch. This I kind of like because it requires people to be active at the start of the season. The start of the season should be very fun. And any experience tomes that you had saved up for your heroes, those all get scrapped. In addition, any action point items, they're called combat points, get scrapped. So you got to go fresh at a new season. So before the season ends, I need to burn all my down, get a whole bunch of PvE loot, so that at least I have that saved up. Some of that loot I will ultimately lose. They're tactics manuals that I'll have to re-earn in the new season. You also lose your artifact levels. So the star level is retained. The skill levels are retained on your heroes, by the way, and your artifacts. But the level of the item, you start from scratch. So you got to do PvE all over again in a new season to get the items you need to level these up. Arcane Dust is what you use. It's kind of like the equivalent of experience tomes, but for your artifacts. All of that gets scrapped. Policies I want to talk about in just a second. Prestige I'm going to talk about in just a second. And lastly, merits are kind of the equivalent of, we'll call them kill points. It's not exactly right. But as you battle in your season, you get merits. Those merits can be exchanged in a shop for rewards, and all of the sort of currency you have for that is reset. So spend down the merits you've earned by the end of the season. The other thing that's really significant here, and I'm going to point it out in this other section, but they also destroy all of the existing alliances. So basically, when you start into a new season, yeah, you can play with the same group that you were playing with before, but you're going to have to build up a new alliance shell, build out new territory. So the sort of freshness you get in the game is going to be from battling into new seasons, I think. I mean, all of this is subject to change. This is still very much in a beta state, right? However, in Rise of Kingdoms, you sort of build up a kingdom. You take that kingdom and you fight other kingdoms. In this game, you're put into a new map, presumably with a bunch of new players. Presumably they merge servers together, and then you got to figure it out. And whatever the season objectives are, you got to work toward those. Now, there are pros and cons of this system. There are definitely some big downsides, but there are also some big upsides. Starting fresh is kind of fun. There is a rush and excitement to starting a new season. Now, I have not yet experienced a new season start in this game, so I'm going to reserve my judgment for whether or not that's fun or not, and the chaos is fun or not. But suffice to say, this is a very important core mechanic of the game. Now, this brings us to policies, which I was very worried about when I first saw it, and then I kind of mellowed out, and I want to talk about prestige as well. So if I go back to my city, I showed you my research center over here, right? The Seers Council, where I'm doing my research. But there was another thing doing research, you may have noticed, on the notice board, and this is the policies section. Now, wait a minute. Chisgule, that's a whole nother tech tree, and you're darn right it is. This is basically season-based technology. Now, before you freak out, because I did when I first saw this, and you think, whoa, so you're saying this is like crystal technology, that's not actually true. You can't actually buy any of this stuff exactly. What you need to do your upgrades here, you see in the upper right, it's called prestige. You get this when you do PvE-based stuff. At least that's how it works in the first season anyways. They could change that if they wanted to. And when you do this PvE-based stuff, you get prestige, and then you can queue up research. Now, You can speed up the research, and it spends a very small amount of gems. It's like 80 gems here for each research item. Some might be more. I'd have to check that out and see. And most of the research is pretty quick. So I do have some concern. Like, yes, you can pay to win your way through this, but still you're constrained by the amount of prestige you have. Every single upgrade requires you to have prestige. And as you can see, at least the way that it was balanced in Season 1, I have way more prestige than I actually can spend. And also you can see I'm 100% free to play here on this account. You know that because I still have the welcome bundle unpurchased. And I have nearly max technology. Not quite max, okay? But I'm like pretty close to having maxed out technology. And if I wanted, I could spend some gems and I could do some upgrades here. And you do get a pretty decent flow of gems, even 100% free to play. In fact, I haven't opened any of my gem tokens in quite a while. So if I go to my inventory and we just get a look at how many gem tokens does Chisgule have right now? I mean, if I rip these open, how many gems could I have? So, 100% free to play. I'm like pulling down some gems here. Look, I think it's an okay system for now, the way it's balanced. But I think obviously if they increase the amount of gems it would take to do this research, that could kind of imbalance things and make it so that even free-to-play couldn't rush it if they wanted to. And just to review the sorts of things that are in here, this gives you more capacity for your armies. It gives you more damage for your units, either close combat or ranged. It gives you experience-based boost, both for your artifacts and your heroes. It gives you choices for healing speed boosts. So I went with a elevated free healing speed. Alternatively, I think if you were much more actively fighting in this game, you'd want to go for a increase to the amount of resource-based healing that you can do. Then as you continue through this, you get more of the same, right? So more Legion capacity, more damage dealt. As I make my way over here, I actually have some further choices around whether or not I want to specialize in a specific unit. But the amount of prestige it takes, again, is extremely small compared to the amount of prestige you gain, at least at this point in the beta. And if you really wanted, you could spend some gems to sort of accelerate this. But the main place I have been spending gems, by the way, is on VIP. And the VIP is really important for unlocking the extra research speed queue that I mentioned earlier in the video. So VIP is in this game. There are honor exclusive, basically VIP gated commanders that you can buy your way into. This is Lilia. She's a PvE commander. It's kind of like a magic-based Minamoto ranged commander in this game. In addition, you do get a daily gift. So increasing your VIP level is really important because you can actually select the legendary hero you want, at least at the level that I'm at. Before this, it was epic heroes. And now that I'm at this level, I can get some legendary heroes. I'm going with Amaris, the cavalry hero. There are, of course, other choices here based on the season. And I believe that this is a season-based token that you can get, or you just need to have the hero unlocked. Maybe you just need to have the hero unlocked. Anyways, you get the idea. At this moment, the highest level of VIP you can go up to is 15. And there is a hero that comes from VIP. His name is Hosk. And he is a rallying hero that you can get from VIP. Again, I'm 100% free to play. I still feel like I'm able to play the game just fine. Now, much like in Rise of Kingdoms, there are events in this game, and I'll mention the equivalent of the Mightiest Governor is the Strongest Lord. And unlike in Rise of Kingdoms, where so much of this event is determined based on how much battling you do, this is broken out into 2 reward sections. There's all of the economy-based Mightiest Governor stuff that you're used to with like training troops and gathering resources. And that has an award of an upwards of, I believe it's 200 tokens or sculptures. And then there's the fighting portion, which is only 20 sculptures. And I think a part of the reason that's the case in this game, and I do have some concern around this, is that because your healing can be free, somebody with enough farms could like really cheese the battling portion of this event. I don't want to go too in depth in this because it's already a pretty long video, but there are a series of other events that are taking place here. In this case, some standard fare. I got to go battle some barb forts and some barbs. These are dark creatures and darkling forts. If I increase my tech power a bit, I can get some tiered rewards. There are also periodic events where they reward legendary commander sculptures for spending speed ups. And there is, much like you would expect, not the equivalent of kind of like a Wheel of Fortune, but because that is also in the game for legendary commanders. But there is also events where you can get specific legendary artifacts. And these artifacts are really powerful. I mean, I have an epic artifact that grants a shield. This legendary artifact grants a shield on up to 5 friendly legions. I can show the max level stats here. Infantry unit hit points and also legion hit points are the buffs that this gave when it's max level. One last thing I just wanted to show you as we start to round out this video is I'm going to bring some flying units out and just move around the map with them. I haven't actually invested too much in flying-based heroes, but I've got one of them leveled up pretty decently. And I've got my different units here. These are spearmen and then wyvern riders. The wyvern riders are my ranged attack flying unit. I'm going to max out the army with those, and boom. You can see they are physically elevated on the map here as I fly them around. And I can actually go over terrain, which is pretty cool. So let's see here if I can fly through this area. I probably can. Let's see if I go right through there. Now, it looks like I'm going around this particular area, and I haven't even talked about the behemoths yet. Man, there's just so much going on in this game. So in the map, there are these holy sites. The equivalent of shrines and altars and Rise of Kingdoms is the behemoth system in this game. And when you battle a behemoth, it's this huge PvE battle. And once you actually capture it, not only do you get some stats, but you also can summon them in battle. Let me show you that. Earlier in the video, I showed this footage, and you can see, in this case, we're defending a pass. We've summoned a behemoth, which is running around smashing the enemies. And they also are going to summon their behemoth, which is going to come on down and do some fighting as well. And the other thing that's really noteworthy in this game is that unlike in Rise of Kingdoms, where you're very much battling... here comes the enemy behemoth moving on toward us here. You cannot escape the darkness, says the bear. Okay, interesting. We got a talking bear here. So unlike in Rise of Kingdoms, where you're frequently reinforcing things to both build them and defend them, in this game, passes are one of the few things you reinforce with your troops to actually defend. Let me show you what this looks like. So here you can see the enemy that we're battling against. They've got those hammers over their head. That's them trying to build a new flag. And here we are fighting them, and they're just basically defenseless. So that's something that's very different in this game, that when you build something, you actually have your troops, they bring out their hammers, and they're like standing out there building it. They're very vulnerable. So you need to actually protect them if you're going to build something. And the same is true for destroying a flag. Like, you don't rally it and then it burns, when they run out of troops defending it. You actually, have your engineers march over within an army, and you go to, dismantle the flag. And after a period of time, it's dismantled, and you have an engineering rating that makes that go either faster or slower. So here you can see, we're battling over one particular flag. They've got another cannon tower nearby. They're trying to connect them. There are roads in this game that you build, makes your troops move faster. It's a very different mechanic, and I don't know how I feel about it. I really like in Rise of Kingdoms, you get in that flag, you lose your troops. You're losing troops. There's no permanent troop loss for open field fighting. So I think this game is much more friendly toward people who do not want to lose their troops, because I think there's a lot of ways you can still contribute and fight without losing a single troop. This video is already way too long, but one last thing I'll show you is that your heroes also have talents. I swear, there's so many things. You've got skills, okay? You've got levels, which are reset every time. You've got star levels, which are not reset and increase your maximum level capacity. And then also you have talents that you choose, okay? And there are actually multiple talent trees. There's a base tree that you have to start with, and you put some points into that. And then there are 3 different talent trees based on your hero and what trees they have available to them. And there are sort of minor talents and major talents. These minor talents you can put a limited number of points into, but you can select as many of these as you want. You can even go backwards and pick more of them if you want to. And then there are these sort of major talents where you have a decision. You pick one or the other, but you can't have both. And they are pretty significant in what they do. So for example, Spirited Response makes it so that when your legion is hit with a normal attack, they gain 10 rage. And this can be triggered once per second. Okay, this is for my tanking army. They generate rage. That means that this particular hero fires off more shields. Yeah, you can see why I would want to do that. There's an alternative here I could have chosen. When your legion enters battle, they gain resistance, reducing the damage they take by 10% for 10 seconds. Actually, I mean, that's pretty significant. This is actually called an elite tier talent. So elite talents, you can only pick one. And the talent trees are really cool. I actually think they have some really awesome choices in there. Even the gathering trees actually are pretty cool in what they do. If I pull that up on the screen really quickly, a part of what's kind of exciting about that is that experience is really a premium. So one thing you can do is use your gathering heroes as a way to accelerate experience onto your other heroes. You pick one gathering talent hero, make them the primary, then you pick a secondary hero that you want to level up, and you get some extra experience per day, which is pretty cool. It's not a ton, okay, but it's better than nothing. Heck, even at the very top choice here, when your Legion has been gathering for 1 hour and completes a task, resource production in your city is boosted by 50% for 1 hour. Let me tell you. I mean, I'm just saying there are some cool talents here. Receive additional reward items when your Legion depletes a resource point. I actually don't even know what those are. I'll have to level up this hero and try it out and see. And of course, there are always ways to reset your talent points, but from a gem standpoint, they're actually pretty expensive to obtain. I know this has been a longer video, but obviously there's been a lot to talk about. This gives you a pretty in-depth overview of the game so far, and I just want to say I'm hesitant to make things like commander guides or other detailed videos about how the game works because major things are still changing. It was less than a month ago that Epic heroes and elite heroes had a level cap that was less than 60, and they raised that. Now they all have a level cap of 60. All heroes are suddenly a whole heck of a lot more viable. We're also looking at the power levels of different heroes and giving them buffs or nerfs based on, you know, what does or doesn't make sense. Here, by the way, is a tower getting destroyed. That's what that looks like. You're probably familiar with that little destruction symbol if you played Light and Darkness and Rise of Kingdoms. This game has a lot of potential. And I think the direction it will go and how fun it ultimately is going to depend on exactly how these seasons work and also how the season-based policies continue to work and how free-to-play friendly they are. Right now, I'd say they're pretty friendly overall, but you increase the gem cost to level them up, or if they require a special currency you have to buy, then things would change around pretty significantly. But let me know your thoughts down below on the comments, what you think of this game. I think it has a lot of potential, and as of this moment, I do plan to whale pretty heavily in it. So if you're interested in seeing that and more videos about Call of Dragons, subscribe to the channel. I do plan to make detailed guides and videos about this game, but I haven't been making them, as I said, because a lot is still changing, and they would basically potentially be made irrelevant based on new information that releases. If you want to see what it was like when I was building up this account from scratch, then you're going to want to check out the card in the end screen, which will appear in just a second.